Okay, so, wow, this P. Diddy story, it's got everyone talking, right? And, you send over a ton of articles, and let me tell you, some of these accusations against him, heavy stuff, like we're talking lawsuits, arrests, even whispers of something much bigger going on behind the scenes. So today, we're doing a deep dive on P. Diddy. The rise and fall, all of it. We're going to try to figure out what exactly led to all of this. And most importantly, we're going to really examine these claims made against him. Now, obviously, these are really serious allegations, so we're going to be super careful navigating all of this. Our main goal here, as always, is to be responsible and objective with the information. So it seems like the first crack in P. Diddy's, facade came with that lawsuit from his ex, Cassandra Ventura. You probably know her as Cassie. She accused him of some, pretty serious misconduct. But, and this is what's weird,
The lawsuit was settled out of court almost immediately. And then, boom, two more women come forward. And they've got these startlingly similar stories. First, you've got Joy Dickerson. She alleges that P. Diddy, back in 1991, drugged and assaulted her. And get this was while she was in college. Then you've got Lizard Garter, who claims almost the exact same experience. Drugging, assault. She even says that he choked her unconscious.
See, this is where it gets really interesting. Immediately, right? It's not even just the accusations themselves, but the consistency across multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these women,
Yeah.
different backgrounds, totally different points in time, yet their stories, they mirror each other. That kind of pattern, that demands attention.
It's true. And then on top of all of that, a fourth woman. She's choosing to remain anonymous, which, but she alleges that she was a victim of sex trafficking. And she says that both P. Diddy and Harvey Pierre were behind it. Harvey Pierre, for those who don't know, is the president of Bad Boy Records. This is back in 2023. And she was only 17 at the time.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself, what would make multiple people come forward with these kinds of accusations, especially against someone as powerful as P. Diddy? There's an inherent risk there, the chance of not being believed, facing backlash, all of it. So why now? And why are their stories so similar?
That's a good question. Okay, so we've got these serious accusations stacking up, and then Usher enters the picture. So back in 2016, Usher did an interview with Howard Stern, and he kind of hinted at seeing some questionable stuff. While he was living with P. Diddy as a teenager, he even quoted P. Diddy as calling his house, get this, Puffy Flavor Camp, and he makes it very clear that it's not somewhere he would ever send his own son.
Usher's word choice is really interesting to me. He calls it curious, Morris. Says he didn't necessarily understand at the time, but now it stands out, right? I think this really shows how time and maturity can totally change how we see things that happened in the past, especially those that were, confusing or even disturbing. As we mature, we just understand the world differently. Things that might have seemed okay or even exciting back then can take on a whole new meaning as we grow and learn. It makes you think that maybe. Usher's really grappling with what he saw, seeing it all through the lens of his own experiences now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And this next part is where things get even darker. So, the producer who worked on P. Diddy's album, The Love Album, he filed this massive $30 million lawsuit earlier this year in February. And he claims that P. Diddy and his son, Justin, drugged and assaulted him. And to make matters even worse, they allegedly filmed the whole thing.
If this is true, the fact that his son was involved and maybe even other people, well, it's not just concerning. It points to something much bigger, a much bigger problem. It suggests this potential culture of silence and fear surrounding P. Diddy, where the people around him are either complicit or too afraid to actually speak out.
And that brings us to March 2024. This is when the whole situation really blew up. Homeland Security raided P. Diddy's homes, both in Los Angeles and Miami. They were investigating those sex trafficking claims, remember? And what they found is, well, it's pretty unsettling, to say the least. Over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant.
Okay, so finding that much baby oil, that's not exactly a smoking gun or anything, but it adds another layer to this whole thing. And when you combine that with those allegations about a drink called Tusi, which was supposedly made to make sexual activity last longer, you can't help but wonder what was really going on.
Seriously. And this Tusi drink, we're talking about a potent mix here. It reportedly has ketamine and Viagra in it. If that's true, that paints a very disturbing picture of manipulation and control. But the real bombshell, a video leaked from a hotel back in 2018. And in it, you see P. Diddy. Clearly intoxicated, by the way. Violently attacking Cassie. She's trying to leave a party. He shoves her to the ground, kicks her over and over. He even throws glass at her. It's brutal. There's no other way to put it.
Legally speaking, That video might have some limitations because of the statute of limitations, basically the time limit on certain lawsuits. But morally, and definitely in the court of public opinion, it's incredibly significant. It backs up what Cassie's been saying about the abuse, and it might have even been what other victims needed to come forward, knowing that there was at least some visual evidence out there.
Right, exactly. And Cassie, she doesn't hold back in her lawsuit either. She talks about years of abuse, beatings, being drugged, and even being forced to have sex with other men. While P. Diddy watched and filmed, it's chilling, really. It really paints this picture of a man who used his wealth and power to control and abuse.
This is something we see a lot, unfortunately, especially in the music industry. These power dynamics. When you have someone with that much power, that much influence, you can create this environment where the victims are just terrified to speak up. They're afraid for their career, their reputation, even their safety, you know?
Yeah.
The consequences of coming forward are huge. Sometimes it feels easier to just stay silent.
And get this, there's more to that hotel story. That security footage, the one that showed P. Diddy attacking Cassie, well, rumor has it that P. Diddy paid the hotel, like a lot of money, $50,000 to be exact, to keep it under wraps. The fact that it got out anyway, pretty telling, if you ask me.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the lengths they might have gone to keep people quiet, you know, to bury the evidence. We're not just talking about one event here. It could be part of a much bigger pattern, covering up his actions.
Absolutely. And you know what? All those attempts to do damage control didn't really work. Once that video went viral, it was like opening a floodgate. More and more people started coming forward. One lawsuit came from a man named Derek Lee Smith. He's actually currently incarcerated in Michigan. But he sued P. Diddy for $100 million. He claimed that P. Diddy had groped and assaulted him at a party back in 1997.
Wow. And what's really interesting about that case is P. Diddy didn't even try to fight it. He lost by default. Now, I'm not saying we should speculate or anything, but it could mean that he didn't want to deal with the legal system at all. Maybe he was afraid that more scrutiny would just lead to, well, more stuff coming out.
Yeah, who knows? And just when you think this whole thing couldn't get any crazier, a really big name gets dragged into all of this.
This part.
Yeah.
I got to remind myself to stick to the facts here, because what we're about to talk about, it sounds like, I don't know, some kind of rap battle fantasy.
Right, or I won't make you wait. We're talking about Eminem. You remember that diss track he aimed at Machine Gun Kelly? He dropped this line, and I quote, "K was the day you put out hits, the day Diddy admits that he put the hit out that got Tupac killed."
Well, hold on. Now, for those who don't know, that's a huge accusation. The death of Tupac. It's one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in music history.
Yeah.
And for Eminem to just casually say that, well, let's just say the internet kind of exploded.
It did. And yeah, okay. He follows it up with, "I'm just playing, Diddy. You know I love you."
Hey.
But it doesn't really sound like he means it, you know? Plus, it doesn't stop there. In other songs like Antichrist and Fuel, Eminem makes all these references to what's going on with P. Diddy, the assault on Cassie, the Kiki car fire, all of it.
Right. Now, Eminem's words, they might not hold up in court, but his influence, that's undeniable. He's got a huge following, tons of fans who believe whatever he says. And when it comes to exposing stuff like this, especially in the music industry, his words carry a lot of weight.
It seems like P. Diddy thought so too, because guess what? He actually demanded a public apology from Eminem. He claimed that Eminem had crossed a line and was seriously damaging his reputation.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, it makes sense that he'd react that way. I mean, Eminem's got this massive platform, and whether those accusations are true or not, even the suggestion that P. Diddy could be involved in something as big as Tupac's murder, that's going to have consequences, you know? People start looking a little closer.
Definitely. So, you've got Eminem stirring the pot. Right. Okay. And then, almost like clockwork, two more women decide to tell their stories. First, you have this model, Crystal McKicken. She alleges that P. Diddy drugged and assaulted her at a studio back in 2003. She actually said that she kept the clothes she was wearing that night just in case she ever decided to take legal action. And then you have April Lampros. She claims that P. Diddy sexually assaulted her multiple times. Between 1994 and 2000, she said that he used his power and influence to silence her, to keep her from going public. She even alleges that he filmed some of these encounters without her consent.
See, these new accusations, especially with the part about filming without consent, it just adds even more weight to the idea that this is a pattern. And the fact that these incidents go back decades, it's really concerning. It makes you think that this is a deeply rooted problem, like a system that has allowed this kind of behavior to go on for far too long.
Exactly. It's like watching a chain reaction. One person finds the courage to break the silence, and it gives others the strength to come forward too. It makes you wonder how many more people out there have similar stories to tell, but are still too afraid.
It's what often happens in these cases, yeah. It takes that one voice, someone to break through the fear, and then it creates a space for others to share their own truth. But the big question is, will justice actually be served?
It's a good question. And that brings us to September 16th, 2024, the day P. Diddy's world came crashing down. He was arrested at a hotel in Manhattan. The charges: sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution.
Now, to be fair, P. Diddy says he's innocent. His lawyers claimed that he was planning on turning himself in, but the judge didn't seem too convinced. P. Diddy's request for bail denied twice, even when his lawyers offered up a whopping $50 million.
And it doesn't stop there. The charges just keep on coming. We're talking forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, even obstruction of justice.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it seems like the prosecution, they're trying to show that this wasn't just, a series of isolated incidents. They're saying he was actively trying to silence people, to stop them from talking, to obstruct justice.
And to make matters worse, get this. Do you know where P. Diddy is being held right now?
Let me guess. Somewhere fun.
Not even close. He's at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. That's a rough place from what I hear. Isn't that the same place they held R. Kelly?
Yep, same place.
P. Diddy's lawyers definitely have a tough job ahead of them. They're dealing with a mountain of accusations, multiple alleged victims, and what looks like a lot of evidence.
It's not looking good, that's for sure. But, we have to remember that everyone is entitled to a fair trial. A jury will decide his fate, ultimately. But I think it's safe to say that his reputation, his legacy, all of it, it's taken a major hit.
It's wild, right? This is someone who is at the very top, the king of the music industry, champagne, private jets, hanging out with all the celebrities. And now he's facing the very real possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison.
It really goes to show you, power and fame, they don't last forever. But I think this whole thing highlights something even bigger. We need accountability, especially in the entertainment industry. This isn't just about one man's alleged crimes. It's about a system that might have allowed this to go on for too long.
Exactly. We have to ask ourselves, what role did the industry itself play in all of this? Did they protect people like P. Diddy? Did they silence the victims? These are the questions we need to be asking. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is P. Diddy just the tip of the iceberg? Are there others out there, other powerful people in Hollywood with their own secrets?
It's definitely something to think about. We've seen this happen before. Not just in entertainment, but everywhere. People in positions of power, taking advantage of others. It's up to all of us to do better. Whether you're a fan, a consumer, or you work in these industries, we have to hold people accountable. We have to create a space where everyone feels safe, where they feel respected, and where they feel like they can speak up.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive into P. Diddy's situation, well, it's been a lot to process, but these are important conversations to have. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive. And as always, stay tuned, because you never know what we'll uncover next.